技を集めたり、その有用性を超えて練習したりしないでください。16番目教訓。どうぞ。宮本武蔵。I will elaborate this precept. The samurai of antiquity are often portrayed in popular fiction and even historical-based renditions as favoring only the katana. But this is far more of a recent phenomenon. In truth, the martial tradition of samurai was derived from utilizing the bow and arrow on horseback, much like the Scythians of old Mesopotamia, and even further back, the Medjai of Kemet. In addition to this was the yari, spear training, the nagamaki, naginata, lance-like weapons, and especially in the case of the famous warlord Oda Nobunaga, firearms and riflery. To include the long and short sword, tachi and wakizashi, all these things were of great interest for the samurai to master in their development as youths into adulthood. This idea presented by this precept is a reflection of the changing times taking place when this precept was actually written by Miyamoto Musashi himself. At this point in Japanese history, they were at the doorstep of an unprecedented period of peace, which would last well over 200 years, the infamous Edo period under the reign of the Tokugawa shogunate. The result was a deeper reflection on the way and virtue of the long and short sword, no longer expected to take to the battlefield to face hundreds of thousands, the everyday encounter with brigands or rival samurai in urban environments became a much more real likelihood. It is here that the following one way to come to understand 1,000, end quote, gained its gravity. I believe this to be the true animating energy of this precept. If you can understand the nature of one way, you can come to understand the way of all things in a broader sense. For example, if one has a screwdriver, but must perform the task of a hammer, but one is not available, if they know the way of the screwdriver well, they'll be able to perform the task, even though the screwdriver was not designed to do so. Traditionally, this can be seen as resourcefulness, but this kind of resourcefulness exists in all things. The psychology behind engaging in swordsmanship against an opponent can apply to matters of business, politics, everyday social events, and just your regular life, because ultimately, human beings are what originate as the starting point of all such actions. I will digress slightly to interject one other useful tool which helped me to understand this dynamic. The way of the beginner mind, or shoshin. When one picks up a sword is just a sword. This is the beginner mind, shoshin. But as one grows in experience, it becomes far more than this. You learn the intricacies on how it can be utilized, and it's easy to become burdened by the knowledge you've acquired and lose some of this beginner's mind. The sword has thusly become more than just a sword. But if you continue to train, and the information you have acquired becomes as part of your everyday existence, and no conscious thought is required to express the way of the long sword, your mind begins to resemble that of a beginner once more. Thus again, the sword becomes just a sword, only this time, free to be applied to all things under heaven. This is the spirit of Shoshin. Such a thing works with all things in life. Come to understand one way, and you will understand 1,000. For this reason then, for the one who walks alone, do not collect weapons or practice with weapons beyond what is useful. Os.